Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Amico. I'm the VP of the Education Committee for Buffalo Niagara Sales and Marketing Executives. Thank you so much for hopping on today for our virtual Student Connection Day. So happy to have everyone here. I know it's going to be a great session. So today we have Jennifer Szustakowski. Did I say that right?
You did.
Woo, I love it. Good. And she is going to be presenting on building your brand, how to show up in a digital world, which I think is more relevant now than ever. And I think it'll just be a great opportunity to discuss this, dive into it. There's so many nuances. There's so much to remember that we have this virtual existence that is reality. Like, it is truly reality. It goes into how we show up in this 3D world. And Jennifer is the Director of Community Partnerships and Marketing at Kids Escaping Drugs. So that is also fabulous. I know that she is always looking to add to her amazing team. And I'm just excited to hear what she has to say. So Jennifer, take it away.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. I appreciate the introduction. So first of all, thanks everybody for being here. My understanding is we've got some marketing students and some business majors. So I'm going to speak to that audience. If that changes, Lindsay or Jeannie, I know you guys will let me know. So just to get started, first and foremost, I want to tell you I created this in Canva. Canva is your best friend. If you're in marketing, use it to every capability you can. So getting started, your personal brand is really what they say about you when you leave the room. And what they say about me is, man, she can talk, but she's good, she's kind, hard worker, you know, those kinds of things. So, and from your perspective in a school setting, and as you're looking to graduate, what it really is the perspective that an employer has of you before they've even met you. And before you walk in the room, before your resume even gets there, before you've even applied for the job in some instances. So we're going to highlight just a couple of few things. So first of all, your personal, professional, on social. What hiring managers are thinking, networking, really quick touch base. I know you already had a networking session, and then giving your why. So first and foremost, social media, and I'm going to focus on LinkedIn to begin with. So every professional person has a LinkedIn profile, and officially you are a professional person. So put the professional pants on and, you know, own it. So LinkedIn is a great resource. It's an incredibly important resource. And if you're going to succeed, the best thing you can do is use it to the best of its capability. Even if you only use it for half of its capabilities, that's better than a lot of students are doing right now. So what's important is your LinkedIn profile good? And we're going to start at the beginning. So are you using a professional photo? And do you have an eye-catching background image? Here's some examples. So here's mine. So here's a professional photo, eye-catching background. Here's Jill. She's one of our BNSME members. Again, beautiful professional photo. And it is a little bit more up to date, I'll say, to have a little zoomed out like Jill's is. And then Jill's got her company logo there. Those are some examples of awesomeness. These here, examples of not awesome. So do not use an unprofessional photo. Do not have a drink in your hand. Do not use some sort of avatar or something crazy. Those are just examples. Here's some more examples. So you can see here, a lot of people have this starry thing in the background, some halfway decent photo. This looks completely different, right? Like, you see her from a completely different perspective. You see her as a professional, somebody that you would want to be working with. Continuing on with our LinkedIn, does your headline sell you, and are you participating and contributing? So let's look at a couple examples of headlines that are selling. So here's a good friend of mine, Robert, amazing guy. And look at his headline here, right? We see he's a veteran. We see he's a board of directors. We see what he does for a living. So those are things, and I love that he used some icons. I don't know that I personally would use as many, but it suits his personality. And that's the cool thing about LinkedIn, is that it's you, you're branding you. So if your personality is an icon-y kind of thing, perfect. If it's not, that's fine too. And there's thousands of examples on LinkedIn that you can use. So you never want to copy somebody else's work, but there's always resources for great ideas. So don't hesitate to use them. Look up people, see, look up your teachers, look up, professionals like in Microsoft or Google or whatever, and see what they're doing. Look up professionals in your industry, anything like that, and see what they're doing. How are they branding themselves? What are they saying in the headline? So here's Kate with Hope Rises. So she talks about how she's a storyteller, right? And that's a really impactful piece for her. And just overall consultant for not-for-profit businesses. So that's a great example. And then also you want to make sure that you're contributing to LinkedIn. So when your profile shows up, a potential employer is looking you up, right? This is your digital resume or your digital business card, if you will. So you've submitted a resume and they're looking at you to kind of get a feel for what you're like. So if you're contributing on LinkedIn, and that can look in all sorts of ways, you're sharing articles, you're leaving feedback in different networking groups or membership groups, or you're sharing something that, I don't know, the head of Google shared, something like that. It's about contributing overall. And then make sure that when you're listing in, because there's all sorts of information in LinkedIn. So make sure that you use the volunteering. And this is where I personally think is critical. So you're graduating school, right? You have lots of great school experience, but do you have real life experience? Volunteering is where you get it. I get that it's unpaid, and volunteering and internship, I guess I would say, are probably very intermingled in that. So if you did an internship, you certainly want to list that. And volunteering is an opportunity to build up those skills. And when I say volunteering, it's not just, I handed out some water at so-and-so's walk. What I'm talking about is getting involved in boards. There's junior boards for most not-for-profits. It's about getting involved in different volunteer experiences. If it's not a junior board, maybe it's a steering committee. Maybe it's sitting on a membership committee for like a BNSME or there's thousands of organizations that exist that are always looking for volunteers, board members, people to contribute to the organization. And although maybe you don't have years of experience to contribute, the fact that you're young and fresh and have great new ideas, that is a breath of fresh air for many organizations that maybe have long-term board members that have been in it for 10, 20 years, and they need some fresh blood. So you are that source for them, and explore those opportunities. So I'll tell you, for one of my volunteer experiences, I joined a board and the next month I was their treasurer. I have never done accounting before. My background is marketing. But I learned QuickBooks. I learned how to set up the charter of accounts. I learned how to do all of those things. So it's a skill that I've then been able to carry with me for 15 years at different companies that I've worked at, because I'm doing budgeting and other pieces. So it was a great new skill. And then, of course, they're going to learn what your skills are on the boards. And, you have got a business degree, or you know how to do social media, or you know how to update our website. Every organization needs that kind of help. So let that be your skill that you share. I will also say, don't jump on a board and then all of a sudden volunteer 100 hours of your time. Jump on a board or a committee or something, learn a little, observe, listen, and then start to offer your expertise. So volunteering is where you can really build up your LinkedIn profile and grow your experience. And there's nothing wrong with volunteer experience, because for a lot of companies, it shows your initiative, like your overall initiative to jump in, even though you're not getting paid. And that speaks volumes to employers these days. And then also listing your skill set, that's great. And any experience that you have, whether that be in interns or internships or any other experience. So here's volunteering as an example. I'm just giving you an example. I pulled these are screenshots right from different people's, well, this one happens to be mine, LinkedIn. So, here's my volunteering, here's more volunteering. There's 4 more volunteer experiences that I can share with you. So I'm telling you the skills that I've gained in those volunteer experiences. The other piece that's good is asking for endorsements. These are really cool. This is one that I pulled up. Literally, they have 43 endorsements. Now, I get you're not going to have that fresh out of school. That's okay. But people with long time established relationships will have these big numbers. 1, 2, 3. You start with 2 endorsements. If you've set it on your agenda that every month I'm going to ask 2 more people for an endorsement that I've met, that I'm building a relationship with, whatever that is, that all adds up. And if it's not as an endorsement, it's as a recommendation, which we'll get into in the next slide. Recommendations are similar. So the endorsements are where people are verifying the skills that you have, like management or public speaking, human resources. Those are just some examples. There's thousands of skills. And they endorse you as, yes, I agree that person has that. When you get into recommendations, that's a little different. So that's when somebody's literally recommending you. And an example might be, well, I would recommend my friend Lindsay Amico as an amazing person to work with as either a personal coach or a coach within your company for team building or any of those kinds of things. So that's what a recommendation is. So for you within school, there could be teachers that are recommending you. There could be like if you're in clubs, maybe the club president would recommend you or endorse those skills, those kinds of things you can pull from there. And then as you increase your volunteer opportunities, then you're meeting with new people on boards and other places. So after 6 months, a year of you doing their social, just as an example, they can endorse you as that skill or recommend you, and you're building up your overall profile on LinkedIn. Also, if you have any relevant awards, those are great to list. The other neat thing is that you can list your interests. So if you're like into hiking, okay, that's fine, no problem. But think of it from a professional perspective. If you are a marketing person and you're showing your interest in, I don't know, following certain marketing groups or following certain marketing agencies, or you're involved in that, or if it's sports management, maybe there's certain teams that you follow or certain blogs that you follow or certain elements, people, companies, all of those kinds of things. Those are all relevant things. So here's some recommendations. So like Steve, he's one of the co-founders of Encore Golf. Okay, well, everybody recognizes Encore Golf in Buffalo, right? So here he's talking about how amazing Jeannie is, just as an example. And this is my friend Robert. He has something like 33 recommendations. I'm not expecting you to have that many fresh out of school, but he's worked for years to grow this number of recommendations. And look how powerful it is if somebody's either looking to work with him from a sales perspective, or from your perspective, looking to hire somebody, right? And then this is another cool thing that if you don't know, it's important to know. So when you're doing your LinkedIn profile, you have to customize your URL. You get an automatic URL. You want to customize it. You want to have it on your resume, and you want to show that you're open for work. So this is what I mean. Automatically, you get something like this, linkedin.com, and a bunch of numbers and a whole bunch of gobbledygook. Okay, well, that looks crummy on a resume. If you personalize your LinkedIn with your last name, first name, whatever, as you can see here on the example, this is how somebody's listing it on their resume. In a couple different examples here. Now, what's cool is you can set it up as a link in your resume if you are sending your resume electronically, or it can just be listed and they can type it in. Either one is fine, but to have it as an extension of your resume. So if you've created your resume and you submit your resume to an employer, it's important that you know and understand that employer is going to look you up, because your resume is a snapshot and it's what you've decided to tell them. So they're going to look you up on LinkedIn. And again, that's what you're still choosing to tell them. And that's great. And that's a great opportunity to share, more about yourself, more about your interests. And for employers, when they see things like how you went above and beyond in whatever that looks like, in contributing, in asking for recommendations, in your volunteer experience, those all make an impact as an employer is evaluating you for a position. And that can be the position that you get right out of school or for the rest of your life, right? Like, I mean, as you change jobs, they're always looking at this. And it's sort of your trademark. It's your online profile of what they're seeing about you. So it's important to keep it relevant, to keep it updated, and you can constantly contribute to your LinkedIn profile with content. So as I design the BNSME email newsletters, I add that to my LinkedIn profile because that shows some of my work. And so a prospective employer would see, well, I see all of these things that she's doing. And when you can add images or content that maybe you've created through your social media posts, whatever it may be on a volunteer gig, it all really adds up. So what's important as you're working through school and you're thinking about, when I graduate, how am I going to apply for a job? What's that going to look like? It's always important, and we learn this in marketing and business, to put your self in that person's shoes, right? Like what's my target audience thinking in an ad? What's my target audience thinking in the social media? What do they look like, right? So put yourself in the perspective of a hiring manager. What are they looking for? What are they looking at? What things are they taking into consideration? And I will tell you, from a position that has hired probably 30 plus people in my lifetime and has been working hard this past 6 months to find staff, what you're looking for is you're trying to find teammates that can help elevate you, either elevate your team, elevate your company, elevate your organization, whatever that looks like. You're always looking to add somebody with new skills, new perspective. Maybe it's contacts, maybe it's networks, whatever it may be, but those are really important pieces that the hiring manager is looking for. So do you have the skill to help elevate that team? And from your perspective, it's a fresh skill, right? Like you don't know the company real well. You haven't been embedded in it for 20 or 30 years. You have a whole new perspective on how things are looking. You have a fresh education, which employees that have been there for 10 plus years, their education looks different than yours does. And that's a great added benefit that you can bring to the table. A different perspective, certainly from social media, having grown up on it. Those are some different things. And then how can you jump in and contribute? So they're not necessarily looking for somebody that is going to take years and years to train, but selling yourself in the way of this is how I can jump in and contribute is awesome. And some of that comes from doing your proper research before you come to a job interview. But if you have yourself in the perspective of what a hiring manager is looking for when you're creating your social media, your LinkedIn specifically profile, your resume, all of those pieces, it goes a long way. And selling on what your potential is and how you can help or make things better. Here's the other thing, and this is a really important thing. The other thing they're worried about is, are you the right fit for the team? Because that is critical these days, especially with people in hybrid situations or working in the office or working solely from home. Are you the right fit for the team? Because if you are going to be the person that comes in and rocks the boat or stirs the pot with gossip or any of those kinds of things, that just makes a terrible environment, especially in this hybrid and work from home scenario. They're looking for somebody that is really going to come in and be a partner, be a teammate, be productive, be helpful. And you can share all of that through your social media profiles, specifically on LinkedIn, but on others. And the ways that you're not going to necessarily cost that company money, but the ways you're going to contribute. So what might be an example of that? When I started, one of my very first jobs was at Sara Lee Foods. And when they hired me, they had never hired somebody fresh out of school. And I was able to sell myself in the way that this is how I can contribute. This is how I can jump in based on the experience that I gained at school, based on the experience that I gained in internships and working, but also based on all the experience I had gained through all sorts of volunteer opportunities that I had taken on since 6th grade and forward. So that was a way that I could jump right in and maybe it's connections that you have, maybe it's organizations that you belong to. So you sit on different boards and I don't know, maybe, some people over at different banks that you can bring in, whatever it may look like from the board perspective that you're bringing in. So here's the other important thing as we're talking about overall digital media. And I know I've got 10 minutes left, so I will speed up a little bit here. Hiring managers are going to look beyond LinkedIn. They're going to look you up. So they're going to look if you have a YouTube channel, if you have a Facebook page, if you have an Instagram page, a Twitter account, whatever that may be, any professional person in charge of hiring is going to do a full search of who you are, because what they're looking for is who you are when you're not putting your best foot forward, right? And so they're going to do a deep dive. And if they find things about you, like, I don't know, photos of you underage drinking or putting down your coworkers or whatever it may be, that is not the light you want shined upon you. So clean it up if it needs to be cleaned up. And here's some examples. So here, people in their status or on Facebook, wherever it is. Oh, my boss is such a monster this morning. Okay, well, if that's seen by your boss, your future boss, your potential boss, your coworkers, that's not professional. Things like worst hangover ever, but important client meeting in 10 minutes, you're not getting hired. If they can find that kind of post with your name attached to it. So here's some good things. Got a great promotion. Here's a photo of me and my friends in team building, all good things. And those are things where people, especially hiring managers, potential managers, whatever, oh, well, look, they talk great about their company. You don't have to love your company to still find positive things to share, right? But as an example, here's a topless photo of me in the company vehicle. No, that is not appropriate. So any of those kinds of things that are up, you want to do a deep dive for anything that anybody could find in a Google search of you, and you want to clean it up if it's not already clean. I hope it's already clean. And then here's some important statistics that I grabbed for you here. So when hiring a candidate, they do a full background check for you. Now, not all of them do like a full criminal background check, which is fine, but they're going to do like a digital background check of you at the very least. They're looking for communication skills. They're looking for an overall professional image, and they're looking for creativity. When you don't get hired, it's because they found something inappropriate about you. And I will tell you, there's many people that I have not even invited to an interview because I looked them up on social and it was despicable. So they don't even get a phone interview, let alone anything else. Information here, we're talking about drinking and underage drugs. Obviously, that means a lot more to me at Kids Escaping Drugs than maybe it does at other organizations, but it's still an important piece of why people are not going to hire somebody with that kind of stuff on their social, or if it's found out about them. With bad mouths or lied about qualifications. So the importance of social media. So about 48% of candidates believe their social media presence is important or very important. It's more important than that. These are numbers back from 2018. That has changed dramatically. And it's one of the most important pieces. It's the thing that they look at first once your resume comes in. Okay, quickly on networking. I know you already just sat through networking, but this networking that I'm talking about here is the networking that you do over LinkedIn. So you make connections on LinkedIn. So it's when you've had an in-person networking session, you jump on LinkedIn and you invite them to be your friend over LinkedIn. I know it's not friend, it's connection, because that's looked at. So when I as a prospective employer am looking you up on LinkedIn, I all of a sudden see, oh my gosh, 6 people that I also know. And so I'm going to call them and see what they think about you, see what their feedback is on you. So, it's who you know, how you know them, do they remember you, and what would they say about you? Because prospective employers are always looking for the unofficial scoop on a person, because what you're going to put forward is your best foot, as you should. Those are the references that are going to say good things about you. And so you want to make sure from a digital perspective, everybody's going to say good things about you too. So they're going to try and get the overall gauge on who you are and who you are as a person. And you don't realize how small town the entire Western New York, Buffalo area is until you have a bad reputation, and that spreads like wildfire. So what you want is the best reputation possible, spreading like wildfire. So it's being at networking events, and it's being a great volunteer. It's, contributing to your overall community. what you're always looking for is giving an employer the why. Why would they want to hire you? Your digital presence has a huge impact on that, but give them examples of why they want to. Don't just say I'm dependable. That's garbage. You can say you're dependable by saying, at my internship, I was responsible for taking in 30 phone calls a day. And I was the first point of contact for everybody that came into that organization. And I was relied upon to triage those calls and manage them in the best way forward. Now you've just proven that you're dependable. And that's just an example. So you never say, oh, I'm dependable. You explain why you're dependable in proof positive of an example of what you did. And sometimes, it's a little bit of a stretch, and sometimes it's finagling things that make sense. But to you, it may seem unimportant that you were answering phones. For other people, especially in a hiring manager's perspective, even if they're not hiring you to answer phones, that's customer service. That's relationship management. Those are all really good skills to have that you can bring to the table. And all of those things help you stand out. So wrapping up, build yourself up, invest the time in your LinkedIn profile, maintain it, interact with the platform, and be relevant on that site, because that's where professionals are going. Clean up any other social profiles. You are now a professional, act like it. Don't hesitate for 1 second to walk in with the confidence that there's no way they found some sort of stupid picture of you from 10 years ago, right? Meet and greet with everyone in the industry. You never, ever know who will be your future boss, your mentor, a coworker, a referral, a client, a customer, whatever. And again, I'll point out that Western New York, very small town, doesn't seem like it, but it is. So put your best foot forward at every opportunity, whether that's in a digital perspective or in person. But they are linked and very closely connected. And help your resume sell you. This is your absolute best foot forward. I'm going to wrap up with just a couple of quotes. So your brand, this is from Jeff Bezos. I think we all know Jeff Bezos, right? CEO of Amazon. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And that's where you want people to be saying amazing things about you, because it's not just not in the room. It's what they're saying about you when they're considering hiring you. It's about what they say about you when they consider bringing you on as a volunteer or a board member or whatever that looks like. And your professional brand reflects what you're capable of. I'll also add this. So your smile is your logo, your personality is your business card, and how you leave others feeling after an experience with you becomes your trademark. I love this saying because this applies to everything, whether it's from a digital perspective or in an in-person perspective. You want people leaving, oh, I really like that person. They were so nice. They were so friendly. They were easy to talk to, whatever that may be. And integrity. I'm just going to stress to you integrity. And that is reflected in everything that you do. And if it's not shown in your resume and your examples and in your digital profile, then it doesn't really exist. So wrapping up with, here's my follow-up. If you need anything, I'm happy to help. We're always looking for volunteers at KED. We're always looking for volunteers at BNSME. I sit on 6 other boards, and I can always help you find some sort of volunteer opportunity that may be right for you. If I can't, I know Jeannie can. And if it's not volunteering specifically with an organization like the MS Society, the Alzheimer's Society, or Kids Escaping Drugs, maybe it's within an organization. Like if you want to get into, let's say, insurance, there's an organization for people who are minded towards insurance or technology or HR or women-owned businesses, whatever it is, there's always an organization that you can jump in on. And I'll end it with my contact information exactly at 12:30.
Wow, that was very prompt. I love it. Very exact. I'd love to, that was like so much amazing information, a lot of information. And so I just want to open it up. Does anyone have a specific question, a specific thought? Feel free to unmute or share in the chat.
I have a question. So, does not having many social medias just rub the employer the wrong way too, if they just can't find you anywhere, or like what should you do in that situation?
So that's a good question. Yes, it is that, because I've come across that. So if you are in marketing, as an example, typically that includes posting social media. And often, if you are posting social media, even if you don't interact with your own social media very much, you have to have a social media account, right? So if I can't find you at all, I wonder. And if I at least like your LinkedIn profile and some other things, and I want to give you a call, I'll ask you that question straight out. Because if you're not interacting, especially in marketing, that's where I can really speak to, because social medias and marketing are, I mean, so connected. If you don't have a social media account, even if you're not using it, then how are you posting to social? How do you have any social posting experience at all? However, if you have a Facebook page, you just don't use it much. I really don't use mine much at all, to be very honest. But you know, friends will post to it, or there's maybe some pictures of my kids or something like that. I have it, it exists. It's respectful. It's not going to give anybody the wrong impression of me. That's the most important part, even if you're not engaging with it. But if you have nothing, they're going to wonder. Come on, there's got to be more questions. This is a lot of information that I gave you. So please don't hesitate to ask. Even if you feel like it might be a silly question, there are no silly questions. There's no dumb questions. There's no bad questions. There's just learning. And that's what this is all about.
And I
can ask another one.
Oh yeah, go for it.
So how are you able to be your most authentic self? We talked about authenticity in the last program. And so I was wondering, how can you be your most authentic self when you're just presented online and, you know, kind of like getting that, not giving the employers the wrong impression again?
Okay, I think that's, so for me personally, I show my authentic self with my volunteer experience, because it's a rarity these days, especially college students, like, I don't know, especially between probably 18 and maybe even 30 at this point in time. Volunteer experience is a rarity. And I use that as my example, because that shows how you give back. It shows where your heart is. It shows how you care. It shows what's important to you. Now, me, from my perspective and my age group with a family and all of those kinds of things, it looks different. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like my time investment has been in youth sports, youth activities. And so it was a great connection to come over to Kids Escaping Drugs. However, from a perspective of a college student, and when I was in college, my volunteer experience was either with the student government, with clubs within there that meant something to me, if it was something like an environmental club, or for me, it was student government. It was also like the debate team and those kinds of things. That's because that's what mattered to me. So I think you show a little bit of your heart when you show your volunteer experience. And, you know, for some people, it's something that's impacted their life. Like we have, you know, some people that obviously were affected by something to do with children and drugs and alcohol. And so they volunteer on our board. That's fantastic. Other people, you know, it may be their grandfather or grandmother had Alzheimer's, and so they're involved over there. It could be they were sick as a kid, and so they're involved in O'Shea's, just as an example, right? There's thousands of organizations, some very, very big and very, very popular, and some, you know, little things within your community that, you know, is a great way to get involved. So if you really want to make an impact, it's finding those smaller things. Like I do Lakeview Athletics. It's a teeny tiny, I mean, little thing that we do in our community, but the impact is huge because there's not a ton of volunteers. Whereas like O'Shea's, right? Lots of people know O'Shea's, or even Taste of Buffalo, or the Allentown Art Festival. They have they probably have 50 plus volunteers in different boards and committees. Great opportunity, take it if that's your passion. But I think the niche is finding the smaller ones that allow you more access and more intimate relationships and interactions. So, you know, they maybe have nobody doing their social. So great. That's a great opportunity for you to jump in on. So I think you show your heart in your volunteer experience. And that's what makes the difference. When I ask every person I ever interview, what do you do as a volunteer? And when I get, oh, I don't really do any volunteering, that's not a bonus for me, right? Doesn't mean that you're a bad person, doesn't mean anything. It just means the volunteer experience speaks to me personally as an employer, and it does to a lot of companies. The M&Ts of the world, like they literally have a whole volunteer section. They have somebody in charge of organizing their volunteers to help agencies like ours. So when you go to an M&T as an example for an interview and you talk about your volunteer experience, that connects with them. And there's same with Ingram Micro, Lakeshore Savings, Wells Fargo. I mean, any of those bigger businesses, your volunteer experience says a lot to them. That was a great question.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I think as well, so I shared the Clifton Strength Finders in the chat, just as an example. You know, you don't have to go into an interview and be like, I'm a maximizer, like, you know, there's all these different titles for them. But if you take a look and you see which ones you relate to, you know, for me, I have a lot of empathy. That's one of my core traits. I'm able to relate to people. I'm able to empathize and connect. So when you maybe you're like, oh, okay, you know, I kind of relate to these 5 or 6, and that's who I am authentically. That can also translate into the workplace. And maybe I love to travel, and that's what I really post on my Instagram account. Or maybe, you know, I love to play video games, and that's one of the things that, like, it's my passion. I feel like there's so many other things that you can highlight, and like we all kind of know now to some degree, okay, what's inappropriate? You know, the drinking or of course doing drugs, things like that, or highlighting super political things. You know, we all know at this point, okay, what if an employer was looking at something, how might I come across? So still being authentic, but just being really cautious about how long is this going to last on the internet? Am I going to have to look back and delete this? Things like that. And also, if you don't really have social media, even having the LinkedIn, I think, is one of the most important things. But if you don't have social media, at least being able to be prepared in an interview to say, okay, someone's going to wonder why I'm in marketing, why I might not be super active on social media. Is there a couple of professional accounts that I have run before or that I can point to? Do I also have an explanation as to maybe I don't really like to post on social media? Maybe I have a TikTok account. I like to scroll a little bit, but I know my sister has been in marketing and she's been burnt out in the past, and she took a break on some of her social media accounts because she was so heavily focused on social media for her job. So I think just kind of preparing beforehand is a great example as well.
And I don't think it's critical necessarily from a employer's perspective. If you're not all over Facebook and Instagram and all of that sort of stuff, I don't care about that personally. But if you don't like it and you don't want to do it, and I'm hiring you for marketing, that's not the right fit. You don't have to be all about it from a personal perspective, but you do have to be all about it from a marketing perspective.
Yeah. From a professional, here's what I'm
exactly
doing potentially 8 hours a day.
Right.
Yeah.
But to Lindsay's point there, you know, having your LinkedIn profile, like that is your professional digital footprint. And that even in the interests, right? Like when I'm looking up somebody and I see that their interests extend into market, when I'm hiring for a marketing position, extend into marketing, well, oh my gosh, that really speaks to me because they're really engaged in marketing. But if their interests extend into all sorts of political things and like heavy, I'm not saying you can't be, you can have your political beliefs. They just don't need to be all over the internet. And if you have strong beliefs, that's fine, but your employer doesn't necessarily need to know about them. If you choose to share that with friends and family, that's your choice. But it doesn't need to be all over the internet because it is. There's all sorts of potential for very strong political beliefs to be one of the things that contaminates a team, right? So don't let that be what is the no for why somebody doesn't choose you. And I will tell you, I have seen some things as I was looking at people's social that it's just like, I can't possibly believe you have that up there because nobody is going to hire you with that kind of garbage. And it's not just extremely heavy political beliefs. It's, you know, inappropriate pictures. It's, there's all sorts of things. You can be whoever you want to be. It just doesn't need to be all over the internet. And that is in every element of your life. So I'll even take it from my perspective as a parent. Okay, I'm a parent. Great, fine, no problem. But if I am constantly gushing over every kid and every pose of theirs, and I've had them for professional pictures 10 times in a year, and really, is that, because that doesn't say to me that you're a strong, steady worker. That says to me that you're just really all about what you look like on social media. That's not what I'm looking for either. So I'm talking to college students about from the college perspective and what you might have, but it extends to every age group and every demographic here, right? So, and the same thing, if you can have whatever beliefs you want, they just don't need to be everywhere. Okay, I'm a Catholic. That's fine, but I don't have 100 posts about being Catholic on it or whatever it may be. It just doesn't need to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, we just have a couple more minutes here. Questions, thoughts? Bueller, come on. All right, so listen, I'll just wrap up with, if anybody's looking for volunteer opportunities, I'm first going to point out Jeannie. So she, if you don't know, manages 1,000 organizations, and that's an exaggeration, but 6 or 10 or something. So if you're, what I said earlier, when I started at an engineering firm, one of my questions in the interview was, what professional organizations do you as an engineering firm belong to? And there was 6 or 7 of them. So I jumped right in because I needed to learn from a marketing perspective more about engineering. If you get into insurance, I worked at an insurance agency. Same thing. Jeannie knows an organization specific for insurance professionals. Just because you're doing the marketing for it doesn't mean you can't engage in that sort of organization. And so Jeannie knows 6 or 10 of them that she personally manages, but beyond that, she probably knows another 20 that are resources. So let's say a year from now, you get into, let's just say Encore Golf. I'm just picking something off the top of my head. So what professional organizations do they participate in? And if they don't, find some that work for them and engage, because it's always about getting that company name out there, however that looks like. And it's always a great interview question, right? Because now all of a sudden you want to engage within our organization, you want to know something about something else. So from a marketing perspective, BNSME is fantastic. But in other industries, as us as marketing people are in all sorts of other industries, right? If it's Mattel, banking, whatever it could be, there's specific organizations that are for that industry. So jump in there too. All right, I'll hand it back over to Jeannie and Lindsay. If anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to talk about anything. I'm always looking for volunteers. We're looking to add a junior board, whatever it is. I'd love to chat.
Thank you for your time.
Much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. Jean, do we have a gift card winner for this session?